Okay, Khan, yeah. This video, this part 2, it's gonna focus on Moab. Alright, so we're gonna go right to where Moab was born in the Bible. Alright, this is Genesis chapter 19. I'm gonna go straight to where he was born, but to get an understanding of it, you need to start at 31 and read down. Alright, but I'm gonna go straight to 37. Alright, so basically what happened, Lot had 2 daughters, and his daughters slept with him and had children. So it was children of, that's why I said in the first video, Moab, Chinese are children of incest. That's why they look like they got Down syndrome. Alright, so then Moab's name explains it to you. Alright, this is verse 37, Genesis 19:37. It says, and the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. Alright, now Moab, when you go, because the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, Moab's name in Hebrew in the Lashon Kodash is Mawa'aba, M-A-W-A-A-H-B-A, Mawa'aba. Now the prefix Ma means from or of, and that Abba means father. Alright, so Moab's name means of his father, or from the father, because that's who he came from. Alright, his daughter, the daughter of Lot, slept with her father, slept with Lot and had Moab. That's why his name was called from father, or from the father. That's what the so-called Chinese, they descend from a man named Moab, and the name Mawa'aba means from father, or of their father, because that's exactly what it means. That's what the Omen Nomen is. Now the elders went into Jeremiah the 48th chapter, and I'm gonna continue right where they left off, because that's a good chapter concerning Moab's judgment. And I'm going to pick up Genesis 48. Genesis 48 and verse, Genesis 48 and 35. Alright, and I'm going to read to the end. Alright, so Genesis chapter 48, verse 35. It says, moreover, I will cause to cease in Moab, saith the Lord, him that offereth in high places, and him that burneth incense to his gods. Because the Moabites are a bunch of goddamn Buddhists and monks. Alright, the Lord's going to stop that shit. He's going to stop that religion that the so-called Chinese be practicing over there in Asia. It says, therefore my heart shall sound for Moab like pipes, and my heart shall sound like pipes for the men of Kir Heres, because the riches that he hath gotten is perished. You hear that? The riches that Moab has gotten is perished. The so-called Chinese, they had dropped the dollar, right? And they think that their yen is going to be, the new world currency, or the new power. It doesn't matter. Even if you have gold and actual, actual money, not pieces of paper, it doesn't matter, because of Job. You get this in Job. Job chapter 21 and verse 13. Job 21 and 13. They spend their days in wealth, and in a moment go down into the grave. Alright, I'm going to read that again. Job 21 and 13. They spend their days in wealth, or in happiness, and in a moment go down in the grave. Alright, but guess what? The so-called Chinese race, they're going to go into the grave. They're going to catch hell. They're going to go into slavery. A lot of them going to be put to death. Alright, because of the riches that they heaped up. They've got those riches by fraud. They got it off of the blood, sweat, and tears of the Israelites. Alright, going back to Jeremiah 48, picking up at verse 37. For every head shall be bald, and every beard clipped. Upon all the hands shall be cuttings, and upon the loins sackcloth. and the elders went into that. All right, because those are the original Moabites. They look like how the monks look. You know, they have bald heads. They didn't have no eyebrows. Then they wore sackcloth. They wore those garments. All right, those are what the original Moabites look like. You know, and it's all through prophecy. You know, if you're spiritual, you understand that. Verse 38: There shall be a lamentation generally upon all the housetops of Moab and in the streets thereof. For I have broken Moab like a vessel, wherein is no pleasure, saith the Lord. Alright. They shall howl, saying, How is it broken down? How hath Moab turned the back with shame? So shall Moab be in derision and a dismaying to all them about him. So very soon there's going to be a lot of crying in Moab. That's why you had over there in, I think it was Thailand, they had some concert. About 375 Moabites got killed, got smoked, got put to death, they got trampled. You know, that's that lamentation that the scriptures speak of. Alright? For thus, because the Moabites are the Chinese, but you still have those other Asian nations over there. You know, some of them are probably mingled together. Some might be Ammonites, some might be Moabites. You know, you never know. Alright, it's all through the Spirit. Verse 40: For thus saith the Lord, Behold, he shall fly as an eagle, and shall spread his wings over Moab. Kerioth is taken, and the strongholds are surprised. And the mighty men's heart in Moab at that day shall be as the heart of a woman in her pains. So when the Lord comes back to put judgment upon the so-called Chinese, the Moabites, there's going to be basically a failing for fear. Alright, all the mighty men in Moab, alright, they're going to be as women. Alright, they're going to have hearts like women. And guess what? Women don't fight wars. Alright, they're the weaker vessels. All you Moabites are going to be a bunch of weaker vessels. Verse 42: And Moab shall be destroyed from being a people, because he hath magnified himself against the Lord. Well, you got to get understanding of that. Yeah, Moab's going to be destroyed as a people, but not altogether, because you're going into slavery. Alright? Let me get this to prove that, you know. Scriptures talk about how there's no end of all people. Ecclesiastes 4:16. There is no end of all people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit. Alright, the point was that there's no end of all people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after. You know, you Moabite, you so-called Chinese who die on this side, guess what? You're going to come back in another life, and you're going to be in slavery. You might die again, and you're going to come back and be right in slavery again. Alright? And you're going to be tributaries unto the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. You're going to be our servants. You're going to be our washpot. Alright? You so-called Chinese, Moabites. You're going into slavery. Alright? In the kingdom of heaven. Jeremiah 48:43. Fear in the pit and the snare shall be upon thee, O inhabitant of Moab, saith the Lord. He that fleeth from the fear shall fall into the pit, and he that getteth up out of the pit shall be taken in the snare, for I will bring upon him, even upon Moab, the year of their visitation, saith the Lord. And guess what? The year of Moab's visitation is coming very soon. Moab thinks that, because you know the Chinese, they like to make a lot of stuff. They think that they can hide in their underground bunkers. Well, guess what? Let's go to Psalms 9:14 real quick. Let's see what the scriptures have to talk about you trying to hide. Psalms chapter 9 verse 14. It says, make sure I got this right. Yeah, 9:14. That I may show forth all thy praise in the gates of the daughter of Zion. I will rejoice in thy salvation. The heathen are sunk down in the pit that they made, alright, in the net which they hid, in their own foot taken. Is their own foot taken. You Moabites, you think you're going to escape your judgment and not go into slavery. You're going to be taken in your own snare, taken in your own pit that you're building. Alright, verse 16. The Lord is known by the judgment which he executed. The wicked is snared in the work of his hands. Hegayon, Salah. The wicked shall be turned into hell. and all the nations that forget the Most High. You see that? You Moabites, when you go into slavery and you try to forget the Most High and the law, statutes, and commandments that are supposed to be kept, you're going to be put in the grave. You're going to be put into hell. Alright? The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget the Most High. For the needy shall not always be forgotten. The expectation of the poor shall not perish forever. Arise, O Lord, let not man prevail, let the heathen be judged in thy sight. Alright, that's why the Lord said prophesy against these nations. Alright, put them in fear, O Lord, that the nations may know themselves to be but men. Salah. Alright, because you Moabites, you're nothing but men. You're not going to rise up and upset your future judgment of going into slavery. Alright, you so-called Chinamen. Alright, y'all are going into slavery. Alright, Jeremiah 48 and 45. They that fled stood under the shadow of Heshbon because of the force, but a fire shall come forth out of Heshbon, and a flame from the midst of Sion, and shall devour the corner of Moab, and the crown of the head of the tumultuous ones, because it's going to be a great uproar. When you tumult means like an uproar or a rising, a great noise. You know, it's going to be a great cry in the so-called Chinaman's race, alright, in their nation very soon when that fire comes down. Woe be unto thee, O Moab, the people of Chemosh perish. Alright, and Chemosh was an ancient Moabite god, and you go look that up back in Numbers 21st chapter, verses 25 to 35. Alright, so it says, the people of Chemosh perish, alright, which is Moab, for thy sons are taken captives. You hear that? And thy daughters captives. You see, you Moabites are going to be taken as captives. Your women are going to be captives. Alright, they're going to be raped, just like you did all women during slavery. Alright, your men are going to be put to death. Alright, your Chinamen, you're going to be slaves. You're going to be captives. Alright, it says, yet will I bring again the captivity of Moab in the latter days, saith the Lord. You see that? He's going to bring your captivity again, because when King David and King Solomon were ruling, you were in captivity. You see? That's why it says, yet will I bring again the captivity of Moab in the latter days, saith the Lord. Thus far is the judgment of Moab. And guess what? We live it in them latter days. And very soon, Moab is going to go into slavery. Alright? Because you had us in slavery. Alright, let me get it in Judges. Yeah, Judges. Judges chapter 3 verse 12. And the children of Israel did evil against the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, so-called Chinese race, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. And he gathered unto him the children of Ammon, the Japanese, and Amalek, the so-called white race, and went and smote Israel, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and possessed the cities of palm trees. So as the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. 18 years we were in slavery under the Moabites, okay? So you have to go into slavery. Even though we had you as slaves, you know, tributaries under David and Solomon, guess what? The Lord said, yet will I bring again the captivity of Moab. Alright, in the latter days, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, this far is the judgment of Moab. Alright, let me go to Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 25, verses 8 through 9. Ezekiel 25 and 8. Thus saith the Lord God, because that Moab and Seir do say, behold, the house of Judah is like unto all the heathen. You see that? You Moabites and you so-called white people, you so-called Asians, you try to compare us to you and all these other heathens, when the Lord said he put a difference between us. Alright? Therefore, behold, I will open the side of Moab from the cities, from his cities which are on his frontiers, the glory of the country of Beth Ishmael and Baal Meon and Kiriath, unto the men of the east with the Ammonites, and will give them possession, and the Ammonites may be remembered among the nations. And I will execute judgments upon Moab, and they shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh.